Hello, Slicey Dicers. This is Brian with another battle to the death for you. Today we have the North Arm Skaha 2 in carbon fiber versus the Three Rivers Manufacturing Atom with the carbon fiber scales. Both very similarly priced, about 220 bucks. Both pretty hard to get your hands on. That's part of the reason why I'm doing this. That's kind of the theme of this, is two knives that are, as people say, made of unobtainium. One way more so than the other, which we'll talk about as we go on here, especially at the conclusion side. But I don't know why I'm doing this. I love both these knives. They're both mine. I did pay full boat for both of them. I got the Skaha on trade, but it wound up working out. I paid full boat for it. And I do really, really like them both. But this is definitely a bit of a Sophie's choice for me. And when I put the scoring together, I was pretty surprised how it came out. But as I said, both very cool knives. This one made in Canada, made in the USA, if that matters too, one way or the other. Canadian people are nice. Don't be mad that something's made in Canada. They're good peoples. Yeah, and like I said, both pretty hard to get. Both well under 3 ounces. You're looking at 2.9 ounces for the Atom, 2.72 for the Skaha. And as I said, both just really excellent EDC knives, and both with a bit of cachet. Yes, they're hard to get, but with the being hard to get makes them a bit more desirable. It's something a little cooler to have in your pocket than your average PM2, but they're not horribly overpriced. You're looking at like about $220 for this carbon fiber Skaha versus about $210 for the Atom with the carbon scales. Both do come in cheaper versions. You can get this in a G10, you can get this in a micarta or a G10. So yeah, they're both very similarly priced. Not horribly expensive. You just got to be patient to get your hands on one, or check them out in the secondary market, which especially the Skaha sometimes goes for stupid money. But let's get going with how do these things work. If you guys have not watched a battle to the death before, we have 7 categories. We have design and aesthetics, quality, blade, ergonomics, carry, deployment, and value. And then at 7, we're going to add them up at the end. We're going to get the scores. We're going to have a winner. So let's do some stats before we get too much farther. Let's start out with the Atom. You have an overall length of 8.1 inches, blade length of 3.47 inches. Try and line that up a little bit better. You have a blade thickness of 0.09 inches. You have a handle thickness of 0.39 inches and a weight, as I said, of 2.9 ounces. Now on the Skaha, you have an overall length a little bit shorter at 7 3/4 inches. We'll go over here. 7 3/4 inches, blade length of 3.3 inches, blade thickness just slightly thicker at a 0.10 inches, handle thickness of 0.62, so pretty thick fat handle on this, and a weight a little bit lighter at 2.72 ounces. Now let's start scoring some stuff. Start breaking some hearts, because these are two. Also, when I pull either of these out in live videos, you guys love them both. You guys made me do this. You kept asking for this comparison video, and I'm very sad to do it. So let's talk about first design and aesthetics. I really much prefer the overall shape of the Atom. I just think it's the typical TRM shape, and I do really like that. The neutron's fairly similar. The Vider is the one who started this kind of design language. I do really like their, I guess, design language, to use a car term. I just like the way they look. I do really like the look of this. The shape of it I do like much better than the Skaha. The Skaha is not particularly imaginative, but the reason I'm calling this tie is that blade, though. I love this signature North Arm thing. That's not North Arms, it's North Arm. I screw that up myself often as well. But just these milling marks that are intentionally left there and polished up, it's so pretty. Like, this blade is just such a gorgeous thing to look at. And I like the finish on this carbon just a little bit better than the TRM. So that's why I'm going to call it a tie for design and aesthetics. This is the most subjective category, so this is one you can just kind of discount if you want to. But in my opinion, I got to call it a tie. I couldn't choose. They're both just, I really like looking at both of them. I think this, if you're a really huge knife nerd, maybe this is more exciting to look at. But this has some knife nerd things too. The way they mill out the logos and stuff just looks nice. Yeah, I got to call it a tie. Next up, we're going to do quality. It's another one I had to call a tie. Each have their advantages. The North Arm, the hardware is much nicer. I will say that. I think the carbon fiber is a little bit nicer. But and so you can kind of discount this if you're looking at the G10 versions. I don't have those two here to compare. But yeah, I think the carbon is just a little bit nicer. And again, the finish on the blade just has a feeling of it being a bit pricier. But this just feels like a more solid knife. There's just something about it's nothing that anything wrong with the design, but you don't have liners on the one side of the Skaha. You do have full liners. This just feels like on the TRM, it just feels like a much more solid knife, and it's so smooth, even though it's running on phosphor bronze washers. And the reason why the hardware is not as nice is you do have these little tiny T6 screws, but they're there just because you have these quick change scales, which is kind of the party trick of the Atom. And you can buy the G10, you can buy the micarta, they're super cheap. You can just swap them out. I understand why they're the smaller screws. They're not as nice as the TRMs, but I get why. Yeah, I'm going to call it a tie on the quality. They both have their benefits. And I just really couldn't pick a winner. These are not all going to be ties, I swear to you. Blade, this one is not going to be a tie. S35 VN versus 20 CV steel. 20 CV steel, a superior steel. This is the TRM's a little bit thicker behind the edge, but not dramatically so. We had was a 17 thousandths behind the edge on the Atom versus 15 thousandths behind the edge on the North Arm. You're probably not going to notice that small amount. S35 VN versus 20 CV, a better steel. And all these milling marks that look so cool, I don't find them to be a real problem when I'm cutting things. I will admit I did hack a lot of cardboard with it once. It was very like single layer cardboard, and you did wind up with some fuzzies that were kind of stuck in there, and you kind of had to wipe them off. I don't wind up with that on the TRM. I just find the TRM to be a little bit better slicer as far as like if you wanted to go as far as robust tips. Maybe the North Arm has a bit of an advantage there, but I still got to give it blade to the TRM. Super razor sharp out of the box. 20 CV steel. TRMs are known for being slicing machines. This is absolutely, without a doubt, no exception to that rule. The North Arm works great. These striations, I don't really feel them holding me up at all, but they're there. Yeah, the milling marks, they look pretty. I don't think they are really a huge detriment in normal EDC stuff, but this is a laser beam where this is just really good. So got to give a pretty clear win on the blade to the Atom. As far as ergonomics go, this one was also pretty tough. I pretty much expected the North Arm to run away with it because it's a thicker handle. I have really long fingers. Normal, large size gloves, normal palm, but very long, skinny fingers. And this has that much thicker, rounded handle. I expected it to be a clear win, but it's got a couple of little flaws. Mostly the jimping on the flipper tab. You do feel that on the back of your index finger a little bit. I don't mind the jimping up here. It's pretty aggressive on the top of the blade on the spine, but it works well. I get why that's locked in there. Then the pocket clip, you can feel it. It's not remotely a hot spot, but you can feel it. I did initially review the Skaha 2 in G10, and I noticed that you could feel the lock bar here. I don't notice that on this carbon one. I don't know if they changed that. This is a newer one than that previous one that I reviewed. But yeah, those two little things are what makes me call it a tie. This is a very thin handle. It's not going to be for everybody. 0.39 inches. Some people may find it a bit thin. I don't. For my personal hands, I would almost give this a win in this category to the Atom. But I could see why some people are just going to say it's too thin. It's feeling like it's twisting in your hands a little bit. If you're doing heavy work, I could get why people would say that. A little bit less, you can feel that you can't feel the clip on this at all. I shouldn't say a little bit less that you can't feel it at all. But yeah, I'm going to call it a tie with almost even a slight win to the Atom. I would say if you don't have really long fingers, I think you would find the Atom probably a bit more comfortable just because of the extra jimping on that flipper tab that I don't think really needs to be there. You can definitely feel it right there on your finger. All right. Next up, we're going to go to the carry. This one is not close. The Skaha 2 carries fine. Nice wire clip. I like wire clips, and this is a good one. But you still have, it's technically a deep carry clip, but you still have a lot of knife sticking out. You have this flipper tab again with that jimping. You don't feel it so much when your hand goes in the pocket, but when you pull it out, you can feel it. It's got a pretty significant, Nick Shabazz trademark name pocket pecker on it. It is a very thick handle. It's easy to carry. It's very light. It is a knife that's almost easy to forget you have in your pocket. There's nothing wrong with the way this carries, but the Atom, I said in my review of it a few days ago, maybe a week ago, it's one of the best carrying full-size EDC knives I've ever carried. Nice deep carry clip, super thin, very light. No flipper tab because it's got the thumb stud deployment. Your hand just slides right by it. It's a joy to carry. This is good. This is an absolute joy. This is almost perfection as far as a knife this size goes to put in your pocket. Now, deployment. This is one that's not close the other way, and in a very similar way. The Neutron, or the Atom, I'm sorry, I keep calling it Neutron. I'm used to saying TRM Neutron. The Atom, running on phosphor bronze washers. For being phosphor bronze washers, it is excellent. Detent's great. Thumb stud deployment's great. Damn near drop shutty. It's a liner lock the way that it is. You're going to have to let it go. But, it works superbly well. One of the best phosphor bronze deployments I've ever had. But, as I said, the party trick on the Atom has always been, on any of the TRM knives, have been its replaceable scales and the very thin slicey blades. The party trick on the Skaha has always been the action. That's why these things are so sought after and why they're so hard to get your hands on. They are outstanding. You guys will see in a few days, I have a Holt Spectre review up that's an $800 custom, and this is just as good. It's so nice, so smooth. I just absolutely love the action, and it's just so snappy. It's so good. The action on a Skaha too, if you've never, or original Skaha, it was the same on those. It's just fantastic. It's just really great. I'm in love with the action on the Skaha 2. Have to give the win in that category to the Skaha 2 pretty significantly, even though this is fantastic for bronze washers. That's why I hate doing this comparison, because they're both great in their own way, but yeah, I think most people are going to prefer the Skaha 2 if you just want something to fidget and play with. Now, the last category we have is value. This one, I have to give it to the TRM. I think as far as price-wise, they're pretty even for what you're getting. You get a little bit better steel on the TRM. But while the TRM is hard to get your hands on, the Skaha 2 is extremely hard to get your hands on. And I know some people say, availability shouldn't be in the value section. Where else am I going to put it? I'm not going to do a regular section for score separately for availability, because most of these knives I do these comparisons with are readily available. So this, they do every few months. They do a run of them. If you're patient, 6-8 months at the most, you're going to be able to get your hands on one. They are going to have a few pop up at the end of this month. The Skaha 2, they just closed the books until the end of the year because the wait list was that long. It took me a year to get one of these. And again, I traded for it. But it happened to be the day I traded for it, I could have also bought one. It happened to be the same day that my order number came up. But yeah, you're going to wait at least a year for a Skaha 2. This, you're going to wait months, but it's not going to be a year. And I think just, they're both, value-wise, I think you're both getting a good bang for your buck, but this is a year. This, you can actually theoretically get one of these at some point. So I got to give a win in value to the TRM, which that leaves me with a shocking, to me, 3-1 win with 3 ties for the Atom. I was not expecting that. I'm very sad about it. I love the Skaha too. I waited a long time to get my hands on both of these, a bit longer for the Skaha. And I have no intention of selling the Skaha. You guys often try and bid whenever I show this knife. You guys start bidding for this knife. I'm not going to sell it. I love it. If I'm ever selling this, something horrible has happened. but it is a pretty clear one. I think objectively, if you're looking apples to oranges, the Atom's probably the better buy. It's probably the better choice. Hope you guys have enjoyed this. I'm going to go be sad now. I'm sorry, Skaha. I still love you. I've been Brian. Have a good one.